So welcome to another exploration into consciousness with the Earth Nouveau Hub. Thanks for being here, ladies. And today we're going to start with asking a question, a very open question, and see what comes up. And we're inviting everyone who watches that replay to ask that question to themselves and see what pops for them. And the question is, what does it mean to be human in this particular era of time? What does it mean to be alive in this particular era of time?
Are you talking specifically to this era or just alive in general?
To this particular, yeah, to our life. Why? So in different. Let me rephrase it. For what purpose would we have chosen to be here right now? From your perspective, obviously.
Well, I think that the world challenges and the technology advances that we have in this generation have posed challenges for us as humans. It both makes our lives better, but it can also make our lives worse because we start relying on these advances and we lose some of our human nature, some of our human survival abilities. Um, I'm glad that I'm alive in this era. I think that even within my lifespan, I've seen so many changes, especially with acceptance of different types of people, different cultures. I feel blessed to be alive in my area because I can go experience any culture, food, or any culture that I want to, and that's what kind of makes life fun is exploring. We're all on this planet, but we're each experiencing everything a little bit differently, and you get to peek into everybody's lives a little bit.
Yeah, I
Fabulous.
mean, I think what we were talking about earlier, where Pluto moving into Aquarius, right? From Capricorn, this sort of stodgy, patriarchal energy of systems and structures, and now moving into this more sort of watery, airy flow of energy, right, is going to allow for energetic deconstruction, right? Which, that's like always high on my list. Deconstructing the old energy so the new energy can come in, breaking down those old systemic programs of control, that have, I think, held us in so many different ways. So, I think we're all, bearers of light and holders of the energy of flow of the plasma of the cosmos, right? And allowing that energy to just be present, and be in that flow of energy. Yeah, anytime anybody mentions a planet moving into Aquarius, I have to sing that song by the Fifth Dimension. And I pulled up the lyrics to this song, and I just want to just read the lyrics real quick because it's really, I don't know, this song, was from the musical Hair. And it's just I think just a great reminder of what's going on with us collectively right now. When the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, Aquarius, Aquarius. Harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust abounding, no more falsehoods or derisions, golden living dreams of visions, mystic crystal revelation, and the mind's true liberation. Aquarius, Aquarius.
That gives us so many clues. Thanks for
What's better than that? Shit. I love it.
There's a lot of clues out there,
A
right?
lot of clues. And these are, I don't know who wrote that musical, but what a revelation. to come out when it did. You know, what a revelation to show us, you know, the vision of the future, of that future. You know, that's really exciting to me.
It's a little bit what you and Jody were also mentioning before. It's like revelation leads to recognition, acknowledgement, distraction, and then evolution, out creation into something new. So this is where the balance comes in, the holding of the balance, right?
This is where I come in a sense. I feel that because of our energetic bodies that we are able to anchor, you know, this rapid move, because this is what is happening over, I mean, when, okay, now I will be 50, but what I'm saying, in these last 50 years there has been so much more development, you know, even than the 50 years before, even the 100 years before that, and even the 200 years before that. So I also feel that having come into this realm and dimension is because we are good anchorers of, you know, keeping it real, although it's, you know, rushing forward in a sense, but still keeping it, the values centered, and somehow, you know, yeah, centered is the right word for it, like this centrifugal, but in a sense that we can keep them together, although, you know, moving in the direction of the creation. And that is what I'm feeling more and more, that that I feel that I have to, you know, this is one of the services that I'm probably doing unconsciously and then consciously in a different way.
Would you say, Sandrine and everyone else, by doing that, because we talk a lot about the self-mastery, clearing ourselves and everything, getting rid of the conditioning and the programming. And as I say, conditioning and programming, and Sandrine says new anchoring and out creating. But we're actually changing the matrix. So when we take this whole self-mastery, because I think, you know, I think we mentioned that even last time a little bit, it's like there's a lot of focus on the inward journey, right? And then you get to a certain level where you start recognizing, okay, so we are actually living in a unified field, right? And we are one, we are not really separated. And as we're letting go of the idea of separation, the idea of attachments to something, the everything really changes, because we're going to we have to start thinking from a place of singularity, and everything becomes bigger. And then all of a sudden we're going to have to ask ourselves, so what is that false simulation? Everything is a simulation, we know that, we're not disputing that, but what is the false simulation versus the primordial, the original one? Because that opens up more topics to explore and a bigger sort of you know, a helicopter view, as I always say. It takes us away from the emotional turmoil and all of that, and it also helps us to no longer step back into the shit box, you know, because what and I'm speaking from personal experience here, if I'm not inspired on a bigger level, expanded, if I don't ground myself in my expanded space that I am, then I go back in the box and I don't fit into the box anymore. And this is where I get claustrophobic. This is where, you know, and I'm thinking, okay, the old programs are switching back on again. But in reality, I'm just in the wrong box. And I'm obviously not the only one. So if we want to think more expanded, if we want to extend more into space and be grounded in that extended space, then we need to start actually asking questions about the bigger and the more ancient issues that have created where we find ourselves in. And lots of us are ancient explorers, right? Sandrine and I, we've met in Turkey. Turkey tours ancient civilization, you know. I know that all of us here go to sacred sites, look at artifacts, you know, and things like that. Now, there's a reason for that. What is this? And this leads me back to, you know, my contribution when I ask, what does it mean to be human in this particular lifetime, in this era? It's like going back to our origins. But not from a place of going backwards. AI, yes, totally different discussion at this point, but going back to our origins to unravel, not going back into old stories or anything, but unraveling the matrix that we've actually created initially. And lots of us have been there when we created that matrix. So I'm not talking to people who've had 3 lifetimes here. I'm talking to old souls here that have been a part of that insemination, that seeding of the DNA, of the creation of the matrix. And this is what, for me, being human is that self-reflection, that ability to use our intelligence to open up that discussion.
You know, I think, Martina, when you say that when you feel like you go back in the box, that everything sort of shuts down. And I mean, you can see this matrix that we're, this vibrational harmonic matrix that we're living in, that is Earth, the projection that's Earth. You know, I kind of go back to that line from the Matrix, where the little kid says, you just have to realize the truth that there is no spoon, right? But there's really no box when you're living in that expanded state of connection to pure source, connection to the pure heart of Gaia, being present in this shift and change. I mean, none of us ever fit in that box, right? For me, that programming of what it's supposed to mean to be human, what's taught to us by the global narrative, what's taught to us by our parents, what's taught to us by our peers, are all, you know, the goal is always constraining to live within that set of boundaries. And I mean, I was never comfortable there. And I know you're not comfortable there, and probably all of us, right? We're the so-called the black sheep, right? Who don't play by those rules. We know the rules, but we also know the true laws of the universe and creation, which, you know, this is just like a constrained bucket of that to keep us controlled, right? To keep us living in the way that the global narrative wants us to live, right? So then that energy can be harvested, right? If we're constantly running on that hamster wheel, going to work, coming home, going to work, coming home, you know, drinking coffee to wake up, you know, drinking liquor to go to sleep. You know, it becomes a cycle, a program cycle that when you're in it, you can't, it's hard to see how to get out of it.
Yeah, the black sheep syndrome, I think we're all quite familiar with that, right? And this is actually when we look at, you know, what some people would visualize for this era of Aquarius to happen, is that rebel, that black sheep, that rebel that we used to be, didn't always have a clear purpose. And again, I'm speaking for myself, you know. There was a time where I was the rebel for a rebel's sake, because I didn't really know what I was rebelling against. And I think the change, what we'll be seeing, or what we're probably perceiving within ourselves, is actually that rebel turning into a slightly trickster, into a joyful trickster energy, with very much a deep, deep purpose and knowingness and authenticity. And also an acknowledgement of the potency of that energy. because it's that energy that can create something different, that can out-create the old, because it doesn't give a shit what other people think, right? It's not about other people's opinions anymore. It's not about us going into points of views or biases about other people either. This is all part of that new opening. And I think, Sandrine, it's the sovereignty, or as Tanya said as well, the deep, deep need, requirement for sovereignty. And where does that come from? And I love so much what Nassim said at the time, or says all the time in his videos. He says spirituality is not understood physics. Because once you understand physics, the unified quantum physics, the way he's actually presenting it, without needing to be a mathematician, it's provable through formulas. So it's no longer something woo-woo. It's no longer something, oh, I don't understand that, because it's now being presented in so many different versions and possibilities. And this is why we never really went on about spirituality. I've never even considered myself a spiritual person or anything like that. I came from the self-development perspective. And spirituality, was something that, came in later on, but we never really banged on about it, right? Because it's an inherent thing. We wouldn't be sitting here if we wouldn't be spiritual. And then later on, it was a matter of understanding, literally, using your intelligence, your choice to understand what is spirit, what is soul, what is singularity, what is duality. And then as you do that, it's fucking black and white. And I use the F word here because it's that simple. It's that basic. It's that raw. It's nothing up there, out there, above us, below us. No, it's us. It's within us. And it always has been.
It's interesting talking about like the structure and looking outside of that structure that we've been taught to live within. The structure of the five senses being the only senses that give us an experience. But there's so much more, right, beyond that. And if we limit ourselves, we stay in the box. We limit ourselves to what our five sense experiential perspective is. I growing up, I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and we all had silly, stupid nicknames. And my mom gave me my nickname, Penelope Pock, who likes to shock, because I was always doing something that made her go, I'm working against the matrix. Like, why did you do that? I don't understand. You're not fitting in. Like, I'm not made to fit in. That's just not who I am. I'm sorry if it shocks you, Mother, but you're the one who called me in. So here I am. Yeah.
And I would say, let me ask you, Tanya, it probably wasn't always that easy to just reinforce that to yourself, because we do get dragged into their worlds, right? And then it takes quite a bit of healing. And this is where the self-mastery is all about, especially those that, black sheep or not, the majority of them is hugely empathetic. And then at that young age stage, we don't understand how easy it is for us to take on other people's belief system, take their physical pains and how to, digest it, how to transmute it, how to alchemize it within our bodies, until we end up with our bodies charring, which certainly happened to me.
Well, and just looking at my own journey with that, right? I was not ever made to fit in, but I was always, also trying to, or being encouraged to, in ways so I wouldn't stand out and be different. Right. And so there was that, oh, okay, well, do I fit in and follow the rules so I can feel loved and supported? Or do I just have to go back to me and know that I'm infinitely loved and supported by the pure heart of creation and my spiritual team, right? And those beings who have my back in higher dimensional energy, because to be honest, there's people who are just looking like this, right? Including my family when I'm younger. And they're much more open now and much more accepting of that change now. And maybe it is because this age of Aquarius is here, pushing everything aside to sort of, grow and flow and change and morph into our true nature, which is beings of light in human bodies.
So yeah, going back to the question, what is it like to be a human, to be alive? For what purpose? Because Tanya, what you're saying is the work that you have been doing, the outlook that you have allowed yourself to maintain and sustain has made a huge impact on your family. Because you literally had to work through the expectations, through the projections. Now, a huge burden, especially when it comes to family, because you don't want to hurt anyone, you don't want to all of this. And this is a fabulous example of what we are turning around now. If you haven't turned it around now's a good time, like Tanya says. Since we've gone through the photon belt, everything is changing. So now it's also that the energy is supporting you to change that and find your sovereignty and become a, and it's a bit of there's a bridge, from going from being bogged down by expectations, projections, points of views of others, programming, conditioning. Then you got to come out, you got to, evolve from all of that, and, to basically become that separate, unique I am, until you realize, oh fuck, done all this work, now I'm actually not separate. Now I got to dive back in. Now you got to dive back in. But you dive back in with a completely different perspective, with a different level of consciousness, with much heightened awareness. Now you don't have to entangle with that. You have choice now, because you see, this is a free will choice planet apparently. But if you don't know what it means to have choice, you have no free will. You only have free will once you know what choice means. And now we have an opportunity to make choices without having to cause destruction. There was a time where we needed to do that because we had to learn to stand up for ourselves. But now it's different. We can just make a choice and trust that the people that are resonating with you on the same signature frequency will maintain their relationships with you, and the rest will fall away. And how does it get better than that? Let them go, because you're not doing them a favor by, having conversations with them they can't take. Let them go. It's not a kindness to people to force them into a conversation just because you want to have it. You get frustrated as hell, and they are frustrated as hell. That's not collaboration. That's not sovereignty. That's just a totally misunderstanding of what this is all about. So this is part of what we're going through, that separation of density, which we've mentioned many, many times, where people disappear. And the good thing is you are opening space for other people to come in. And I also think, I just want to mention one more thing. It's like when you go through that transition, there is a time where sometimes you may be just ending up with 3-4 people you can literally have a conversation with. And depending on the topic you want to play with, you might even have one person to talk to. And what if that is enough? What if that is enough? Because you become yourself enough. And this is where Jody comes in with AI and that marvelous, you know, invention of internet and all of it, where we're no longer dependent on our neighbors or our children or our husbands or wives to talk to, because we can just go on YouTube and watch something that elevates us into the next, that inspires us to the next level.
I think that, you know, and this has been part of my experience, that I just want to share about this old energetic structure. I feel like when your family, for example, when your child is always trying to force you into that structure, following the rules, right? It gives you a sense of that who you truly are isn't good enough, right? And so, and I see these patterns in the clients I work with all the time. So then you create another persona who follows the rules, who is the pleaser, who is the one who, like, oh, I'll do everything you want me to do because you're not supporting me for who I am. And I think there's this gestalt that's happening, this realization of people's true nature as they start to let go of that old persona that is the one living in the box, the matrix, following the rules. You know, we start out in that place and we forget who we truly are because we're so conditioned to be someone we're not, because who we are isn't accepted. So I think, you know, one of the things that's going on collectively is there's this huge revelation about the truth of who we are as human beings, not, you know, what the church has told us for thousands of years, not what, you know, the political system has told us. I mean, these are the structures that are starting to deconstruct to allow us the truth of who we are, to allow that energy to just come through and be present. You know, and I look at my own awakening journey, and it went so slowly in different stages. It's like once I got out of the house and went to college and the harmonic convergence happened, I started reading tarot and really started getting, you know, much more aligned with my intuitive nature. You know, then I can, you know, go through as point that caused, you know, other awakenings in myself. But it's, you know, that was all by design, planted by my higher self or my oversoul, or to give me an understanding of what it is to be me, right? It's almost like we have heavy coats that we wear to hide our true self. And those coats come off layers by layers by layers until we're the shining being of light in the human body that's really here under our own jurisdiction and direction, our own direct connection to the prime heart of creation.
I mean, you want to say, Sandrine? You go.
Well, anything that both of you are saying, it's like, you know, I could have said the same thing because it's just a similar, you know, we had similar journeys, so we had to meet, right? Because it was like, yeah, it had to be. I mean, mine is reading as Tanya's, and mine is reading as Martina's. You know, it doesn't really matter. You just read one of our threes, and you will find, you know, all the convergence and synchronicities that you would love, that you would want to. What I am currently again coming up against is that I really feel that the flood that happened destroyed. I really feel that, you know, the ancient civilization and the ones pre-flood had these connections that we are currently now trying to get back to again, because it was so obvious. You can see it in all the symbolism that they leave behind, that it's about oneness, that it's about living with each other, because they already had sufficient people around them to vouch for that. And that's the only way to actually live on this earth. You can only survive when you live in, and here using these words harmony and balance, but it's never it's never a harmony and a balance, because there is always something that needs to move, you know, for things to move on. And in all the indigenous cultures, and also when you talk to these, which I was very fortunate enough to have done so, talking with people that haven't seen white people since, you know, the British left for the Japanese War, but just saying that all these people trying to make their living is only by living within, you know, the nature and with the environment, with each other, and creating something together, because that is how you survive on this planet. So now coming to, you know, the catastrophe happened, and then just a very few survived, you know, and probably not it, but many knew what was going to happen, because that is why they buried Göbekli Tepe. That's why, you know, these things were actually being kept away for, you know, later on to show, you know, we knew already what was happening. That's why we buried it. But the point that I was going to make is that I really feel the last 12,000 years, in a sense, are kind of a joke, that we had to struggle so much to come back again to where we are. And probably one of the reasons why we find each other, and I mean us, our frequencies find each other, is just to make this statement again, in a sense, saying that we had that already and we need to come back to that, you know, within the modern setting of what happened on this planet. There is always evolution. You can't stop that. That's impossible. But probably we were also there to actually bring it then to the modern age, right? So because we can live with the change. We already had it happen in our past. It stayed with us more prominently than for other people that are completely lost in the simulacra, you know, of you know, the mainstream and TikTok and what have you. I'm not saying TikTok is bad. I'm just saying, you know, just to make the point. And that we are the ones, we can live with TikTok, it's fine, but we are also the ones that are pushing forward. Like you mentioned the primordial matrix, you know, I wouldn't even go to the primordial matrix. I was just saying that is the essence of life. That's the fabric, you know.
So let me expand on that, and thanks for that, because you mentioned a few things that triggered a couple ideas for me. So you mentioned the flood 12,000 years ago, whatever, you know, people want to call it. Let's just expand on that, okay? Since we're in expansive mode, let's go back, and you know, when we did some work with AB, he always talked about 54 million years, just looking at, you know, what went on the Earth, the development on the Earth and everything. And, you know, I remember then we were talking about the false matrix. The false simulation started already in the Atlantean times, right? So now today, I was just reading one of Issa's Facebook posts where she says the false matrix goes back to the last cataclysm that happened. That was like 66 million years ago, which very much correlates what we've heard from through you know, all the timeline wars and the timeline shifts and all of that from AB's you know, sort of exploration into galactic history. So you're totally on track, Sandrine, but it goes back further. Now that shows our age. If we can relate to that, shows, well, we've been here and we were part of the destruction, ignorantly or not, because we've done it all as a soul, as an old soul, right? So I'm sure, you know, we were part of it. But also we planted some seeds then that we would come back now as the ancient future now and rectify, restore whatever the fuck we fucked up. I'm not taking myself out of this. This is the time to restore the timeline, to restore the matrix, to get back to primordial, to find out about our origins, to go really, really deeply back, because that will then help us to remember our true purpose, why we've come here. And what have we, do you know, I do remember one of my readings, and I wrote that in my book as well, where AB said, you know, 1530 in Gibraltar, King's Knights Templars. I was one of them, and I was tasked to, you know, collect all the metals from the planes and crafts that had crashed, bring them back to the Templars. And of course I didn't, rebel that I am, right? I just made my own philosopher's stone out of it. And I planted it for this lifetime. And of course, when he told me that, I thought it was lovely. I love it. What an adventure. No fucking clue what you're talking about, right? And then I realized only later, because he said to me, I planted it in Nigeria, and nothing clicked at the time. And when I was in the oil industry, I was in Nigeria on a couple of travels, business meetings. And why? I'm not saying it's something special, we all go to it, but why Nigeria, right? So we're starting to find the pieces of puzzles that we are now starting to put together. And then if we do this, what else can we do? What else have we left behind here? What seeds have we planted? And look at me, I'm talking about seeds. Don't ask me to plant flowers or, you know, strawberries or anything like that. But talk about seeds like that. Yes, I'm a seeder. This is what we got to start looking for. What have we planted that we are here now? And if we are being called back to certain places for whatever certain reasons, then we can be quite sure that there are seeds that we need to unearth, or look at the seedlings that have, or the trees or whatever, you know. So this is what I wanted to say. And then there's one more thing. Now, with all that age that we have, Tanya talking about letting go of personas, right? Now, I saw a movie once, which was beautifully depicted that this person obviously had issues with his parents. And every time he had an issue, every wounding he took, every pain he got inflicted, he created another persona. So sometimes our box gets full, not because we want to go back into it, but we have millions of personas lined up that cramping our style, and being present with millions of personas, wounded, mainly wounded ones. And we can call them personas, or we can call them soul shards, fractals, any of that need healing. And every one of those personas is pretty much on a different timeline at times as well. So all that, like, you know, what's the word? We're getting too cramped with all of that too. So this is, again, goes back to understanding, to an intelligent approach to spirituality, if you want to call it that, awakening, whatever, to understand what a holographic projection actually means. What is a fractal of the whole? So again, we can understand that. We can learn that. We can look that up. We can look it up from the spiritual, you know, society, or whatever you call it, people, or you can even go now physics, if you look at the right people.
I always kind of thought of fractals and soul shards. You know, it's sort of like the in-breath and out-breath of prime creator, the in-breath and out-breath of pure source, where the source breathes out and our energy divides and divides and divides and divides. And the source breathes in, come back together, we come back together, we come back together. And all these little parts and pieces, as they come back together, they help boost our memory and boost our intention, our true soul's intention or spirit's intention of what it means to be here and now. You know, and those personas that we create as the wounded child, you know, when those get reintegrated and loved and nurtured, then the other soul shards from past lifetimes, from different timelines, time streams, dimensional realities, start to come back to our heart center. And there's this just in-breath, this drawing back in that's happening now to help us remember the magic that we've done in the past, right? The magic and the space that we hold, as beings of light.
And then, of course, there is that space in between the inhalation and the exhalation.
That becomes a 0 point where everything is that
0
singularity,
point.
the oneness.
Singularity, the oneness, exactly, the 0 point, the black hole, where everything spins, the infinite possibilities.
Go ahead, Martina. Sorry, I didn't to interrupt you. There you go.
I was just banging on
spinning as your gold symbol is spinning around.
Spinning.
This stone here, it's an Andara stone, and I was in Barcelona, and I had looked at crystal stores to check out in Barcelona, and just randomly as we were walking through these little winding alleys in Barcelona, I ran into one of these crystal stores. I'm like, oh, I wanted to go here. And so I walked in and I heard like a stone calling me. I'm like, where are you? I know you're in here. So I'm looking. In the very back of the store, in a box on the floor, in the back corner of the store, there were just random stones chucked in there, like a box of here, here's your grab bag, grab anything for $5 or something like that. And this stone was in there. I'm like, oh, you're the one who's calling me. And I grabbed it, and it just had this wonderful, like watery, airy flow of energy. And it looks like a bear paw, and I thought, oh, this stone must be mine. I must have it. And so I took it with me, and it's one of the stones I use in my elemental grid, a crystal grid, but just really started helping me understand more about flow and energy flow, just by listening and being present. So I think Earth tells us, Earth teaches us, and if we listen, those little earth beings of rocks, of crystals, of dirt and trees and the animals that abound, the land remembers. The land remembers who we are and what she desires us to be as well, as the soul of Gaia. I know I'm here to assist her in her evolution as well. So that remembering, it is a flow of energy. It is a watery, airy flow that is beyond the structural limitations of our physical bodies and of our programmed thinking.
Yeah. Anyone else who wants to say something to what Tanya just said before? No? Because you mentioned a couple of good words there in terms of, the imprinting and the flow and the water. And this is where we have to remind ourselves that, yes, we are, 70-90% water, depending on who you speak to, right? And water is imprintable. So information is imprinted on water. And you know what's going on the planet now? And some people call it, it's fossil fuels and all that shit that's creating climate change, which of course is a very small and limited perspective. But you can, again, expand that and see, climate is changing. Not because we're driving our little Prius, golden Prius around, creating avalanches. No, but because that's what this earth has done for millions of years, right? Changing its position. So of course everything is changing, and this is what we are going to see probably in this Aquarian era as well, where the ice is starting to melt, where we're starting to realize that what's underneath that ice? wow. And I've just posted this the other day about Antarctica, because this is something I'm looking into at the moment. All of a sudden, you know, I'm not all of a sudden, I mean, there have been people there before, and there are rivers down there. There are pyramids down there. There is life, organism, plankton. All of that's there, and God knows what else is there. So I am wondering, talking about what seeds have we left behind to remind us what we need to go back to, how we are connected to what's underneath Antarctica. And I'm not saying everybody is connected to that. I certainly am, as I'm exploring more and more. But then again, what have we planted in Peru, in, you know, New Zealand? Look at all those places that you've been, all the artifacts that you've looked at, and that actually created an impression on you. And how is that leading you to what you have planted here? How is that leading you to what are you supposed to be remembering? And yes, that doesn't mean that you are not remembered, you are remembered. So let's use a better word. What are you supposed to be decoding? What sort of clues? Sherlock Holmes, Old Souls, Sherlock Holmes, what have you left? What clues have you left behind that wanting to be decoded now, to get back to collaboration, inclusiveness, you know, out creation, innovation, all of these lovely things that, you know, we attribute to the Aquarian era. And we're living.
Talking about Antarctica. I remember reading a number of years ago this Admiral Byrd's lost diary of him flying a mission in Antarctica and flying over a certain area, a portal to inner Earth. And he was flanked by 2 ships and then taken down into this space and met these beings of inner Earth. And that was always really, you know, inspiring to me. My elementary school, one of my elementary schools growing up was Admiral Byrd Elementary School. I thought that was very, very funny and, you know, not coincidental, synchronistic, that, you know, that story inspired me, right, to learn more.
Absolutely. There is so much coming up for me on this that I want to start looking into. And if we have other people who are interested in that, then I invite them so that we can inspire each other to say things. You know, we talk about aliens coming from God knows, from the outer planes, but we have them already here, obviously, right next to us in the supermarket. But apart from that, we also have these amazing species living under the ice. And then the other thing that really made me, when I looked into this, I was thinking about, you know, this vault, this seed vault that we have in Norway, where we have those millions of seeds, and the entire world is planted, giving their seeds for wheat and God knows what, and they store them underneath minus 18 degrees or something. And I'm like, that just reminded me so much to what we have left behind for us to find, right? And I'm literally talking finding it. I'm not saying, oh, just sitting there and I was like making shit up, MSU. No. And this is where I've come to the realization whenever I go to this ancient civilization trips and everything, you know, because I'm there and I'm like, oh, all these interpretations of what this stone means and this just bores the shit out of me, because this is actually just an interesting point of view, right? And that's fine. And sometimes something resonates, but the majority of it actually doesn't, because it's really just mental masturbation. But apart from that, why are we there? Because we resonate with the land. We activate soul codes. And then there's another way of decoding these artifacts and these ideas. not necessarily from a limited perspective of people who had no tools, right? But from a high technology, ancient civilization, which changes the whole perspective. I mean, Sandrine, I've just sent you the other day, you know, like all these, what you call these polygonal walls that we find all over the world, which is a big thing. How did they manage to get them exactly stone after stone? You know, and there's a million different ideas about this and hypotheses, if that's a word. And then there's obviously the one which Nassim saying that, well, the stone wasn't solid at the time when they put it together. It was like a plasma. And I'm like, why the fuck did I not think about this before? Of course. Sandrine.
I told you that, but you never listen, you know, that's your other problem.
No, I'm too busy listening to the earth.
No, it's true, but this is not nothing new under the sun that he was even putting forward there. It's just that on some of the stones that works, but others that we have seen, it's weird. The plasma, the liquefaction of the stone, and then the molding, it works and it doesn't work. It on some things it doesn't make sense, you know. But okay, it's another valid one of these valid theories, and it's probably more right than, you know, somebody coming with the laser. Although, I mean, I'm not talking about these civilization didn't have tools. They certainly knew how to manipulate matter and elements much better than we do today, because we need tools. They probably did not need tools because they used something else for it.
So you just
I'm still thinking that they used frequency, you know, they used a tool that let them use frequencies to a model that you shape the elements into shape, you know. And they just made these lines or polygonal thingies. My theory on it is that it's probably a writing, or, you know, it's a coding of sense, you know, these lines. Or that they just did it because it was, you know, somebody fancied it and they just found it beautiful. You know, look at Art Nouveau, you know, all the curly curls.
Same thing. So what did she think when she did it? I said, you don't want to know what I thought when I did that.
Right.
No, absolutely. But this is the next level of, there's no bias, there's no right or wrong, there's this inclusivity. And whatever, you know, reminds you of something is, you probably were there at the time doing it in whichever way or form, right? But you did mention something else just now, manipulating of matter, right? And then Tanya was talking about the 5 senses. And of course, you know, manipulation has a bad rap, but manipulation doesn't mean anything else than, you know, reforming, restructuring certain things. Exactly. So part of why we are here, in my personal perspective, is to expand on our 5 senses. And, you know, I didn't even know the word for it, you know, until recently. It's called psionic skills. And these psionic skills is not something that nobody's ever had in this lifetime. We've read about this mainly in fairy tale stories, but, you know, the ability to bilocate, the ability to transliterate, the ability to do all of that, that is inherent in our skin suit, in our technology. And that doesn't make us machines. If people have a problem with technology, I like using technology because it almost is so beyond what we have ever been able to imagine until now, right? But if we're really starting to switch on those capacities, that brings us back beyond the false simulation. And that also explains why we have a false simulation, why our bodies have been manipulated in so many ways, because there was a benefit to some to keep us small, to keep us limited, and to keep us not in our full capacities. And that is our responsibility now, to remember, to uncode. We are remembered. So it's like we have to go back. But why do we have to go back? Because time goes forward. So everything, literally, I think this is also something, you know, to maybe consider at some stage from a perceptional perspective. Everything has already happened. And you've heard this a million times, right? We're sitting here probably as our future selves already. All the visions, all these foresights that we have, they come from somewhere because we remember them from our lives in the future. So literally this whole transaction, this whole awakening process, all of this has already happened. So this is why we're needing to go back to our origins. Because we need to almost like bend linear time or go beyond linear time. We've heard so many times that, you know, past, present, future is all happening in this at the same moment. So being present doesn't necessarily only mean anymore that we are listening, but it also means that we're not just listening to the earth, we're listening to the atmosphere, to the cosmic, you know, to the deep core of the earth, to the deep core of the sun. Not just one sun now, since we've crossed the photon belt, since we've gone into this Alcyon belt or whatever it's called. I don't know enough about this because we've got now the blue sun too, right? Not that I've ever seen it, but these are things we need to expand our horizons. And yes, is this a place of where, oh, can't prove it, right? Can't feel it, can't taste it. No, but does it get you excited? Well, that's good enough for now. If you get excited about something, there is something there. Because frankly, you know when you're not excited. You know what turns you off. And it could be one word. It could be something you hear on TV, on the radio, in the supermarket, on the street, or on our shows here. Because we are not here to explain, because we don't fucking know ourselves, right? We are seeders. We remember ideas and we just throw them out there for inspiration, for you to take and unfold them, uncode them, decode them, look at other material. That's what we do too. Oh, I speak for myself again. That's what I do too.
Think about this human technology and, you know, where we had that discussion about the siddhas and what are some of the abilities that we're learning to use, right? Making ourselves light or making ourselves heavy. One of those technologies is being able to manipulate and control the elements.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a workshop that I listened to of Matthias de Stefano, where he was talking about memories of living as a woman in ancient Egypt. And he was one of the ones who was able to work with the water and manipulate the energy of the water. But when we're talking about those ancient sites, right, the people who could manipulate the energy of earth, of stones and rocks, you know, it's almost like I've seen this vision of almost like a wizard with a staff, as all of the rocks are set and have been levitated into place. Then there's almost like a melting that happens along the cracks, so they seal together without mortar, right? And that melting, you know, gives the strength. Then the rock hardens again, and so that's why some of those ancient sites look like they're almost like melted in place, or look like they're slump block, right? That just kind of merge, bend and merge there. So, you know, that's alchemy, pure alchemy.
Yeah, and this is that kind of alchemy everyone can play with now. I mean, we've got the works of Veda Austin, right? She's carried on with Esimoto's work on, you know, using imprints on the water and freezing them. And the most magnificent, sort of frozen depictions come out, right? Or even when you do, you make yourself a glass of water, you do a little swirl in it, you clear it, you cleanse it yourself. And you can maybe, if you carry on doing that, and there's maybe a bit of practice that is required, you can taste the difference. Just like you can taste the difference between a tap water and a filtered water. You can start doing this, play with that yourself and see what happens, Or fire, work with the flame of a candle or the fire when you do, and see if you can influence the fire, the flame. Show me a dragon, show me this, show me that, or the clouds, things like that. These are fun things to do, to just get a bit more, don't like the word confidence, more practice with these things until it becomes the norm for you to do that kind of thing. Right? And then, there comes a time, which we can probably all say, is there's no ways you can go out and don't see these things anymore. It's like there's a face in every stone I see, in every leaf that falls from the tree, every tree I look at. Everything starts talking to you, and it can be overbearing at times. But it's just a choice. You can always say, fuck off, I'm not talking to you today. Switch it off if you don't want. It's just a choice. And this, I think, is, when I first heard that, I said this a couple of times, when somebody said it's just a choice, I was angry. I didn't like that. It's not just a choice. But at some stage of our evolution, it's really just a choice. And there's nothing right or wrong. So if you do want to have 5 coffees in the morning and 2 bottles of wine in the evening, then do it. Do it. And really do it. Because I can guarantee you, from experience, you're not doing it for a long time. Allow yourself to do whatever you need to do, but do it well. You want to mock, you want to be miserable, do it. Take 5 minutes to be the most miserable person you can ever be. You're going to snap out like this. Resistance will always kill everything. It will not let you expand. Don't resist.
I think too, there's a mindfulness, right? When you're doing it with a mindfulness to it, an intention and a mindfulness, instead of just blindly following what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes, that too. Sometimes just be the animal that you've been to. We're talking about the last cataclysm. We've all been mammals, right? No, absolutely,
We
but
still are.
I'm a lion. I'm a lioness. But you guys know what we're talking about. Just choices, talking about choices where I'm just thinking if I need to put my thingy back on. Yeah. So, talking about the Aquarian age and what is humanity? What does it mean to be human in the Tanya, talking about Capricorn. Capricorn is an earth sign, right? So we got going from Capricorn to Aquarius, and Aquarius is an air sign.
Mm-hmm.
Earth and air. So that in itself shows you that the way we live the last 16 years is not going to happen.
Well, and Aquarius is also the water bearer, right? So even though it's an air sign, it has that association of water. So we're going from those solid blocks into that like melty, juicy, flowy, blowy energy.
Yeah. Beyond structure, so uncertainty, impermanence, and then of course this big discussion of plasma is coming in, right? Lots of the plasma discussion is coming in, and that will change our experience forever, because everything we've been talking about, psionic skills and upgrade of biology and expanding our lifespan and everything is going to be normality once we have learned how to activate our plasma bodies.
think too, yeah, because those higher frequencies and higher dimensional energies are available to us where that plasma actually exists and that higher frequential energy, those higher dimensional energies. It's almost like liquid light, right? That liquid light now is flowing through us, right? Into the layers of the aura, into the layers of the blueprint, allowing a flexibility that we didn't have before. If we look at our cells, our bodies is a cellular structure, like those bricks in the wall. The plasma is the alchemy and magic that allows the flexion and the movement, right? That allows the lubrication of the space between the structures for the flow. It's a pretty exciting time, I'd say.
It's very exciting, and
I don't know where else I want to be.
I just want to, but and I would really suggest to anyone who wants to look into plasma to understand what a black hole is. Because once you understand black hole, you're going to start understanding gravity. You're going to understand plasma. You're going to start understanding that you are a plasma being, that every nuclei in our proton has a black hole that has the plasma, that 0 point, that vacuum, that infinite possibility within ourselves. There's a plasma, there's a black hole in the center of the earth, there's a black hole in the sun. Our eyes are black holes, the pupils are black holes with a wormhole going from one to the next. It's purely understanding the opposite of what we've ever learned what a black hole is. That in itself is going to completely open you up to a different, because once you look at this and go, what the fuck have we, what? That's a black hole? And we have the physics now. And of course, I'm excited about that because, you know, I've looked into this and I've met the man. And if you start listening to a guy like Nassim, there's no way backwards. There just isn't. And then, of course, the fact that he can have a formula, which everybody wants, prove it. I don't care about the formula. I don't understand it anyway. But the understanding of putting it together, there's no way back. There's obviously a reason why they make it very difficult for him to publish all these things, because it will change everything. It will lead us within the next, I don't know, what do I know? It will lead us into free energy. He's being blocked wherever he can, you know. But there's another thing which, when we looked at this, I've never been a big fan of legacy. He needs a legacy, right? Because legacy, I always associated legacy, oh, it has to be up in the big, you know, everybody needs to know, oh, Grubmüller did this. And now is a different, I have a different sort of appreciation of legacy, because it's becoming more about that passion of finding out, why have I come here? But not from a, what's my purpose, but, you know, decoding and then really looking, because I'm starting to see myself more as a visionary is the wrong word, but I mean, why am I even interested in all of this, right? We're all visionaries here. So what is our legacy? Because also the other thing is what I've realized in the beginning of my journey here, it was about what can I create right now, right? What can I sell? What can I speak to people about? What can I do? What kind of healing? So it's very tangible, it's very material related and that kind of thing. But now, since I'm no longer attached to that, it's more like, oh, what is my legacy in the unseen that maybe nobody will ever recognize me for? And I don't obviously care about this, but what can I, and even if I'm just in a supportive role for somebody else to come forward with a legacy, and I can say, I was there holding space, I was there inspiring. I mean, that's a very Lyran trait, obviously. We Lyrans are like that because we're all coming from the heart, right? It's not ego driven. But it's important to look at that because it gives you that, I don't know, a bit of a warm feeling within yourself. What am I seeding that maybe my Emma's grandchildren will be able to unearth or benefit from? Because great granny, the crazy one, was on this planet.
I love that. Carrying the seeds that we're planting now into the future exponentially, you know, through the generations. To me, I think legacy is an interesting term, and for me, I don't have kids. So I have a lot of nieces and nephews, you know, and now one of my nieces is about to have a baby. So that's very exciting. But I see, you know, sort of like my legacy as grounding, energetic pointers. So when I come back, I can awaken more quickly. I can be in my own energetic direct alignment and power faster and more easily. You know, it's like I'm born in the 60s. That age of Aquarius, you know, that was 1969, right? And so, you know, part of that energy of the liberation and the summer of love, right? That's part of what called me back here. That you know, they were talking about the age of Aquarius in the 60s, right? That energy of flow and of magic and the ability of deconstruction, right? To create something new, something that we can, you know, be inspired by, to create from our true heart and soul's perspective. You know, that's how I feel about legacy, right? Creating something that will help me remember when I'm journeyed back as a child soul, as a baby soul, you know.
Absolutely. And when we talk about, when I mentioned Emma as an example, it doesn't require us to have children. It's really humanity that we are planting those seeds for, including ourselves. And I think there's, you know, there's always two things to, and I fully agree on a personal level, Tanya. I'm totally also interested in being able to celebrate my death, to literally consciously celebrate before I even move on, because I have sort of at least attempted to finish my life review before I even get there. And
That's like a living life review, right?
living
Being
right
able to go through all of the things that you were supposed to learn and recognize that with consciousness so that you can clear the karma, be it personal or ancestral, and be in your dharma, be in your power, in your path, and allow that to ripple forward in time and backwards in time to create a balance and a harmony.
Absolutely. Now we've got Jen, who just came on. We've got Marissa on as well. So we've started, and I think the question is quite a nice one for everything that we've discussed so far, is like, what is it like to be human? For what purpose did you come here at this particular time, at the change from Capricorn to Aquarius? Does anyone want to chime in here?
Well, I'm just catching up with the conversation. But especially over the last 11 months, right? Like looking at this year, I've really come to understand that while being connected to universal oneness on the other side of this experience is amazing, all the pleasures and the joys and the learning happens in a body. And so to me, what does it mean to be human is to have the gift of having the experience and getting to learn things and see the beauty in the world. I have a very deep appreciation for my physical body that I didn't really have before this year. Being in the transition between Capricorn and Aquarius here, I would say the energy is a little bit lighter, but I haven't fully explored it yet myself. I think I'm going to see that expansion and that shift more into the first part of next year as things open up towards spring.
But I love what you mentioned, that appreciation for embodiment. We haven't actually mentioned that, but that's a very valid, you know, and that unshakable motivation to really make the most out of the embodiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the joy that we always talk about, right? Bringing the joy back in. The joy.
Even in the hard times, there's so many things to appreciate that I think it helps to reset a sense of gratitude. That even in the hard times when things feel thick and heavy, that there's still so many things around us to shake us out of it.
Yeah, on the embodiment. So as I'm going through some of the side effects, and I try a few of my go-to things to make me feel more comfortable in my body. So I have the breath work, but then there is also the slower movements of either, you know, something that I have not really touched upon is the Qigong or the Tai Chi. I have it on my notes that I think I'm gonna go down that way, but also Yin yoga, and something that I always love to do is like the 5 rhythms dancing from Gabriella Roth. So I have found in one of the shops a little leaflet that says to do the biodanza, and I was like, that's probably nearly the same thing. I mean, it's probably just based on the same thing. You just flow with your body and you do it in a group. So I'm actually looking forward to doing that. It's in 2 weeks' time on a Sunday. And that's going to be really, I'm really looking forward to that, just to be again in the same room with people that are intentionally there, that are intentionally going to open up, that are intentionally going to move their bodies, to be in the flow. You know, it's not something you're at the party and you need to move, right? It's different. It's people come together and they will intentionally move, and it will be with a good vibration. You know, nobody will come there and just say, no, I'm not going to move. Well, they paid for it to move, so they will move probably. And I have noticed more and more that when I'm in those settings of where people come together with an intention of what it is that they are doing at that moment, I always feel I have a very quick way to connect, you know, because it's the intention that connects us in the sense. And then also just to, you know, get more energy for myself out of that as well, because, you know, it just feels good. Like our meetings here, we come together to explore, you know, this is what we do. And the energy late after, when I have to leave quite soon for the other course, there is a different energy there, but still, you know, you come together for something on a certain purpose. And I feel the more and more that I can distinctly use these different settings to actually generate, you know, also energy and good feelings for myself. And that's just wonderful. Another way of embodying, you know, the energy as well.
You've just beautifully actually explained, you know, by having a purpose given to a particular group, it frees you from creating it, which you have done all your life.
Right.
So well done you. And then you can actually start really choosing which group do I actually really like, or, you know, because so far you've never been in a situation, and, you know, I know you a little bit, so obviously I'm just saying what I'm saying, but mainly I'm saying it from my own experience, you know, you've been a facilitator all your life. And as a facilitator, you can actually not, and I see this, even when I facilitate the group, there's always, I have to bring the masculine through, because there has to be a guidance. There has to be, what's the next question? Who hasn't spoken yet? That's at least how I facilitate, because I want the collective to get an opportunity. Whereas if I'm going on to a meeting, I usually can bring my feminine in, where I just sit back and expand out and say something if I'm asked, or if there's a pressing. So this is very interesting to feel the difference between the masculine and the feminine, the expansion and the more focus, and play with that. And of course, when I facilitate here, I try to play with both to back off, you know, times, and not always I manage. So I do apologize, but but the other thing I want to say, the 5 rhythm, this is another thing which is interesting, because I've done 5 rhythm, you know, with a few, you know, London, a couple of places, they did it. And this is also one of the things that's happening now in this new evolution of human 2.0, you know, it's where you go there, 5 rhythm in particular, because you don't need a partner. You just go there, you have your own sovereign bubble around you, and you could just dance, you know, do your own thing in your own bubble. And having said that, you just beautifully described the beauty of the collaboration, that everyone is doing that. Everyone is dancing in their little bubble. And it gets really beautiful. Have you ever done a silent disco? Fantastic. I love it. Disco music, and you've got your headphones on and you're in your own space, but you see everyone else move around, but there is no interference in your space. And, you know, you come close to people, but because you can't hear anything, you only have the music in your own headphone, you just become a bit braver almost. And like a bit like the polygonal, you know, walls, you become less solid, more liquid, more plasma, and you fit in, you slot in with the people, because the words or the false matrix is taken out almost.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've also gone to one particular 5 rhythm, and that's which is the closest to me, which I tried 3 times. And I can't do it because they're trying to guide it. And now you're going to do staccato. Now you're going to do blah, blah, whatever the others are. And I'm like, whoa, no. I didn't come here for you to tell me what to do, you know?
But the rhythm tells you what you do.
Yeah.
In a sense. I'm sorry.
Some people are control freaks and they like to do it differently. And some people need the guidance. Otherwise, they don't know how to move, blah, blah. It is what it is, you know, but I've been to a couple of those and it was amazing, amazing. So you must tell us all about the bio dancer once you've done it, because it's beautiful.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's about 30 kilometers. I know for some people that is not a long range. 30 kilometers away from here. They always meet on a Thursday evening, but 30 kilometers from me means running through rural little streets and you know, it's raining and it's dark outside, and I'm like,
I'll check it out once. if it's easy enough, and if not, then you
No,
know.
I would maybe more to springtime, but as long as I'm still on medical.
Yeah. No, be aware of that, because otherwise you can't really enjoy the experience, right?
No.
Yeah. Amazing.
On that note, I leave you there. See you next week.
Yeah,
Big
thanks.
hugs.
See you soon. Huh?
Thank you.
Just hitting on something that Sandrine was talking about. I think movement is so important, not only for the physical body, but just for moving energy. So yoga, dancing, especially breaking up dense energies and making it fun again. But moving the physical body it's an amazing way to heal. And I thought it was funny how you you said you didn't like the class when they started telling you what to do. I was trying out some guided meditations for a hypnosis client of mine, and I never do guided meditations. And I found myself really annoyed with it because I was trying to have an experience and they kept talking and trying to tell me what to do, and I didn't
Oh, tell
think
me about it.
that.
Yeah.
That was funny.
That's why I can't have, you know, I've tried 3 times hypnotherapy, and it just annoys the shit out of me, because all they do is they just read their script, you know, and that's it. Or the guided meditation or something like that. No, I agree.
Yeah, I've for a long time tried to hold to the script, but very few people really respond to the script anymore. So you just have to go with whatever
Absolutely.
comes to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's movement as well. And I think that's a very good point you're making here, talking about movement. It's not just dancing your ass off in 5 rhythms or whatever. It's movement in terms of what is required now. I might have done this for 5 years, but maybe now this is no longer the time. And then what comes in with that kind of movement is also the allowance for yourself to let go. You know, like Tani was saying, let go of that persona that worked for you at the time, but it's no longer the person that you've grown into. And it can be quite disenchanting, or you know, almost like it's not the word, like disheartening when all of a sudden, like, okay, don't want to be a therapist anymore. Okay, I don't want to talk to people in that kind of way anymore. I don't want to do, and there's nothing left, and you're in this space, and lots of people do find themselves in that space of impermanence, uncertainty, like movement, fluidity, where things are preparing to come through. And you know, you can feel it, right? It's right there, but you don't know what to call it yet. And that's okay, because that's the old way of us needing to define something. And what if we can just follow that energy and see where it leads us, right?
Mystic crystal revelation and the mind's true liberation. Aquarius.
What else have we got there? Social awareness, inclusiveness, we've got that uniqueness, understanding is key, longevity. Yeah, there's one thing, one of the items you know, we looked into was regionalization, you know, collaboration, interconnected systems, and things are like big corporations, yes, falling apart and going more into regional, like unification. And I think that's similar to what we said early on with uniqueness and singularity at the same time, because yes, there is that regional, like even us, you know, we are a community for what, 4 years now, and not many people know us, right? But that's okay, because we are perfectly interdependent, right? Without needing, there's no neediness in that. And at the same time, there's a globalization going on, because I'm talking to people in the States, right? So this is that interesting sort of, it's different to duality, it's different to polarization, right? It's that coming together of species, coming together of humans in our case, at least that's what we call ourselves. But then, of course, we need to also now bring in, and we haven't spoken about galactic citizenship yet, the galactification of that, what is actually happening on this planet, our multidimensional backgrounds, the, you know, the understanding of what that means, and of course the imminent arrival of you know, interdimensionals or extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the Pentagon is already starting about it, so I lost interest because you know all these years we talked about it, but now it's on the big screen anyway, so we're already moving on. What's next?
Well,
Right?
it's interesting talking about regionalization, right? All of us live in a different place, in a different metropolitan area. And what are we doing? We're holding space, grounding light, creating a space for the singularity to come through as that polarity deconstructs, right? And of course, we need the polarity when we're in a physical form, right? Like we're talking about the proton and the neutron in the cell. We've got the black hole and the proton and the light and the neutron. And then the electron spins around it, right? Blending the two energies to make the physical form that we're in. So the light and the shadow, it's a part of us in this physical form. But as we're raising that frequency, becoming more in that singularity, then all of those energies blend and spark together. And as we hold space for that in these metropolitan areas, I'm in SF, Martina's in London, Jen is in Knoxville, Tennessee, I think. Yeah. Marissa's in San Jose, right? These big metropolitan areas that have people from all over the world, right? There's a seeding and an inspiring and a holding space for just more of that light and plasma and singularity to come through and be grounded. And as each of us, we're all touching base on a regular basis because we're working with the same energies, and sharing that. And that works like the pebble in the pond, right? When we're holding that space, then it ripples out into reality, creating that blending, that ebb and flow, right? Where, we're in our own bubbles of reality, but we're bumping up, we're, moving and grooving with everyone else. And are they dancing to the same rhythm? Maybe not, but there's a dance of life, regardless of whether it's the same rhythm or not.
Absolutely. Those opposing forces. And this reminds me of the Casimir effect. I don't know if you heard of the Casimir effect. If not, just look it up. I can't probably, remember exactly now, but what Tanya just said, it's like plates, like take two plates, like I take Tanya in San Francisco, me in London, and we are vibing, right? On the same time. And there's this plasma, that 0 point in between, that's spinning. And what happens, like, whoop, we become one and we merge. We're still opposing plates, but this is when we all merge together, come to that singularity. Doesn't mean that I am no longer me and she's no longer her, but we're just coming together for a purpose.
Shared vision, shared flow. Go ahead. Sorry, Marissa, go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to share what Tanya was sharing, reminded me of the mycelial network. And all of us, like, we're individuals, yet we're like trees with the roots. And even though we're across the world in different locations, I feel like each of us have that aspect of the hub of interconnectivity. And then how you mentioned how we're at different locations, and even certain things within my job is like, oh, like no way, like just like the whole interconnectivity of the opportunity of influence or impact by those that I interact with, and where they go like a spider web and out from there, and then from each of us in our little big cities, and just how we influence, but then it's from us being rooted into our networks, and how we just ripple out. And then just going back to the dance part, because I love to dance, and then I think it's just sometimes it's just like the art of it is getting out of our own way and just to get into the space to where we can just flow. So having those little safety bubbles kind of just allows us or allows me to just flow and co-create with others in their uniqueness, yet interconnectedness. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful, Marissa. I love the tree and the mycelium, analogy as well, because, if you imagine yourself in the trunk of a tree and you look up and you only see the branches and the leaves and everything separately, right? Because you're not seeing, as you're looking down, the trunk and then the roots and everything. And that's where perspective sometimes comes in, isn't it? If we're only looking at the tree, the separate branches, then we're forgetting that we're all part of the tree, of the source of all, right? That's our source connection. And this is why, if we're looking at the trunk and the roots, this is where, our origins are. And this is why I think it's coming through so much to where we're being rattled almost, impulse to look at those origins so that we can then start focusing on the various branches again, without getting unsettled or anything, because there is this knowingness, that innate trust that we're all part of that trunk, that source trunk. No matter, irrespective of what direction we're dancing in, right? That safety net, even though safety at that stage is no longer, the right word for it, but that weaving, I think somebody talked about weaving, right? That woven net, fabric of existence, that we all have our little fingers in, added to web of life. We're all spiders and flies.
Weaving the web, stuck in the web at the same time.
Absolutely.
Detangling from the web.
Exactly.
Or having our soul sucked by the spider.
I used to, when I had a spider web and I saw that a fly was going in, I'm like, okay, I'm saving you, right? I'm coming. And I'm like, nope. That's nature.
I was in my kitchen this morning before we got on the Zoom, and I was making my tea and my husband was making breakfast, and I was looking from the kitchen out towards the back, and there was, my back faces the east, and there was light coming in. And I saw a little tiny spider drop from the ceiling. And I said, Bill, wait, don't move. You're going to walk right into that spider. And so I grabbed him and I took him outside.
Okay, well, that's still okay. But
Yeah.
I was trying to black them out through the bloody hole. Like, yeah, we can do this.
That little spider, grabbed the web, and he was just like hanging on. He said, go outside. My husband said, where are there others? Are there others? When there's one little one like that, there's got to be more, because they come out in thousands and thousands.
Right.
The little weavers are all trying to get inside now.
Exactly. They're all here to remind us. Well, that's what we got to do, right? Okay, guys, girls. Closing words. We've done it again. 2 hours. God, we're good. Closing words. Closing words. What's it like to be human? Just one word. Give us one word. What is it like to be human in this lifetime, in this new era of Aquarius for you? I throw my word in. Mine is restoration.
I'm going to go with revelation.
Revelation.
I'm gonna go with exploration.
Exploration. Lots of Asians. Exploration.
I feel one word is too limiting. Dancing through the heart.
Dancing through the heart. Fantastic. Girls, I love you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Recording is going to go out.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.
Love
Big
y'all.
hugs all.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.